All right, a little bit of a different video today. Talk about inspiration, maybe even some motivation. Who knows? Been feeling pretty uninspired lately to music-wise, I guess. Not necessarily creatively, just from a musical standpoint, I haven't been super inspired. I actually just tried filming a video before this, and the beat was just going bad, so I deleted it and decided maybe I try a video where I don't actually make music, but I just talk about it, talk about inspiration and stuff like that. Let's get right into it. Something that I think really is hard to do when you're feeling uninspired is just starting anything. I know that, like, for me, sometimes it's hard to even get in here into the studio and start working on something. Don't tear this thing down now. But, you know, I also, like, I do a little bit of painting, I do digital drawing, and I've been messing around with a lot of animation recently. And I think the reason I don't do more painting is that it's not streamlined. If I want to paint, I have to go into my closet, get out a canvas, my paints, my brushes, get everything set up. I have a drop cloth I put down because I make a mess when I paint. So it's not something I do often because it's not streamlined. So I think that can help a lot, is making the process of starting as quick as possible. So when it comes to music, I mean, it takes me a minute to come in, turn on my PC, couple clicks, Pro Tools is open, and I can instantly start making music. Like, even as far as this video here, it's not something I normally do. I'm trying something new, but just that I took the time to set up the green screen and things like that is more than I could have done before. I think just being able to get yourself started, even if you make something that's completely fucking terrible, at least you did something, you tried. Maybe that it didn't help to actually spark the inspiration, but you got the motivation enough to start. I think that is the hardest part of any sort of artistic, creative endeavor, is being able to have the motivation to even start. If you're having that problem, I mean, just turn the video off and go start. Because you never know when you sit down, maybe you load up a instrument and you play in a couple chords, and now all of a sudden that idea sparks and you're like, oh, but off of those chords I can put in a bing bing bing, and that goes into the next thing, and then you can start to build off of that. And sometimes you start and it doesn't happen. You start and you make something that sucks, and like I said, at least you tried. That's the most important thing, I think, with any creative stuff. Like, I've put off animation for a long time, and I've recently, just because I haven't been inspired to make music, I've been working on animation more, and I'm actually making cool stuff, which who knew? And it's actually going pretty well. I made a couple of animations over the past week or two that I actually really like. I haven't shared any of them yet because I'm not super confident in it still. But I think that was the biggest thing for me, was just that I sat down and started doing it. I mean, that's the hardest battle with more than just creative stuff in life, is getting started. But if you don't start, you'll never make anything, you know? Yeah, a couple years ago, I guess I just didn't feel like really, like, just making a beat and rapping and making a beat and rapping like I had done for years. So I think I kind of just feel like I almost fell out of love with making music. But then the more I wasn't doing it, the less inspired I became to ever do it. Once I started just sitting down every day and working on stuff, and I started making different genres of music, experimenting more with new sounds and things like that. And if I would have just kept not even starting, then I never would have found my love for making music again, which now I think about it constantly. It's all I really want to do is make music. Like I said, the inspiration's a little low right now, and I can't. Just seems like everything I try to make isn't working out. But I've also been sick for a week and a half, so that could have something to do with it. That's the first thing. If you're struggling with inspiration, struggling to get the inspiration to even start making something, go do it right now. Even if you have no ideas in your head, nothing, just go do it. Try. Worst that happens is you come up with nothing, which at least you gave the effort, because you're coming up with nothing right now, too. Goes right in line with just starting is don't set any expectations for yourself and don't worry about the outcome. I think that's the hardest thing with me doing YouTube now is when I'm sitting down to make these videos, whether I have a good idea or I'm just doing a more laid back video where I'm just cooking up some music, it feels like I have to make something amazing, which I don't. It doesn't matter. I can make the shittiest beat anyone's ever heard in a YouTube video, and honestly right now, I don't have that many viewers anyways, so like, who the fuck cares? The next one, I might make an amazing beat. Today, I might sit down, make a video, and make something terrible. And sure, that doesn't feel great. Like going in with the idea that I'm gonna make this. I tried making another episode of Sound Recycling Club, but I haven't really been in the same creative mindset to make the type of music that I want to make for that album. So it's not going to come naturally, and if you try to force it and you're focused on getting a final product, then you're just already hindering yourself because you don't have the freedom to just go with the flow and see what comes to you. Like something that I like doing, I don't do as much when I'm making videos, but when I'm just sit down to make music just for the fun of making music, I usually load up like Serum, and I can work. I know how Serum works. I can work my way around it, but I don't know how to make a sound specifically that's in my head and transfer that into Serum. But that's the fun of it, is I sit down and I just start mapping LFOs to random things. I try out all the different types of filters, the comb filters, and mapping those cutoffs to LFOs or to different envelopes. And I almost let whatever my experiments bring to me kind of dictates what I'm going to make out of it, which I think is a really cool way to do it. I think experimentation is one of the best things you can do creatively. I think when you go in with the mindset of this is just an experiment, you don't have any concern of what that experiment turns into. Like, I'm not going to make a sound in Serum that just pierces my ears and I don't like, but I am going to make whatever comes out of it turn into something that I like. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is that when I'm going into do like a sound design thing like that, I'm not at all worried about what the preset I make in Serum is going to be at the end. I'm just worried about where it's going to take me. That, I don't know if that makes sense at all. End of the story. And I'll stop rambling about this one. Is just don't worry about every time you sit down, this has to be the greatest beat anybody's ever heard in their life. You know, it doesn't have to be. You can just make something. Make something in a completely different genre than what you like. you might have fun. That's what creating should be all about, is having fun with the process. The process is the most important part. The end product is just what came out of your experiments. Start from somewhere you typically wouldn't start from. So for this one, I don't know what to do with my hands. I feel like Ricky Bobby. You remember that Metro Boomin video that was going around where he said, sometimes start with your drums first? I think that is pretty much the point to this one, is that a lot of times when I sit down and I'm going to make a song, I start with chords because I love chords and I love playing on my keyboard, and that's just kind of my favorite way to make music. But I can also play the same chords on 5 different beats, and I end up making the same fucking beat over and over again. And it's like, why are you doing this to yourself? Start with drums. Because when you start with the drums, now you gotta fill in space. You're not just... If I start with chords, then all the space is already there. If I start with a melody and some drums, then the melody is not going to take up the entirety of the grid, right? You're going to come up with something different if you start from somewhere different. So maybe you always create your whole melody and everything, and then you add the drums on top of that. But what if you start with your drums and build backwards? It's almost like, I don't know where I heard it somewhere, but in movies and books, you need to know, you should write the ending first, because you need to know where you're going. And then you can write the story that leads to that ending. If you start writing a book and you have no clue where it's going to go, there's no path, you know? Which doesn't directly relate to putting your drums first when you're making a beat, but it's a different starting point. I just think it can completely change the way that you approach your creation if you don't always start from the same point. Maybe you don't usually sample. Try chopping up a sample. Maybe you always sample. Try playing in your own melodies. See what happens, you know? And same as every other point that I've made so far. If it turns out shit, it turns out shit. It doesn't matter. You can delete it. Or you can just leave it, let it sit on your hard drive. That's what we producers are best at anyways. I think that's a really good thing for everyone to try, even if you are inspired. I mean, like, maybe try building a loop using different sounds than you would normally. Instead of using a kick and a snare, try using toms and bongos, you know? It might come out shit. It might come out amazing. You can make the greatest beat you've ever made trying something like that. So start from somewhere new, see what happens. You never know. Giving yourself limitations, which also kind of goes along with the next one, guidelines, so we'll just bunch them in together. I think limitations is a big one because it can be freeing in a way. As producers, we probably got way more VSTs than we ever need installed on our computers, and we probably use the same 2 or 3 all the time. Maybe a limitation you can set is try making a beat using only one VST. Maybe one that you downloaded and never really took the time to learn. I think that could be a fun way to go about it. You could limit yourself to maybe only 3 layers to build your melody or something. Combine those two, make that the limitation, that you have to build your entire melody with 3 layers using only this one VST that you haven't really touched before. Because I know I mean, I have tons of plugins that I download and just never even use. And maybe I'll try that after this video, actually. I don't know. We'll see. But I think that could be a great way to kind of, one, you're learning something new. I think that is kind of the main point for both of these points, because the next one is guidelines, which I think can also be a huge help in getting out of inspiration block. But the point of these two isn't necessarily that it's an inspiring thing, but it's that it causes you to kind of discover new methods and ways to do things. And I think that is where inspiration can be born from, is learning something new. I mean, that's what keeps me making music, is I can always learn a new technique that I can apply to everything I make going forward. And that I just keep continuously learning, especially with mixing. Mixing is like a bottomless pit of learning that you can do. So as for guidelines, kind of similar, but a little bit different. Something I've tried before is go to a random number generator and you set the limits just under and just above what's like a typical comfortable BPM range for you. It's like I typically like making my beats anywhere from 70 to 90 BPM, which essentially is the same as making a beat at 140 BPM if I make it at 70, but I put the snare on the 2 and the 4 instead of on the half note, you know? So it doesn't really make that much of a difference, but I've done it before and the random number was like 167, which I've never made a beat at that fast of a BPM. But I tried it and it turned out pretty fucking cool, actually. Another one I want to try that I haven't yet, and I actually might do this for a video in the future, but trying out different time signatures, that's always been terrifying to me, just because I've been making music about pretty much half of my life now, and I've never made anything out of a 4/4 time signature. So just to even wrap my head around it is confusing. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm still confused. Just even saying that confused me because I started to think about it. But that could be a cool guideline. And I could think if you're in a different time signature, I mean, you're not going to make your drum groove a 4/4 drum groove. It's not going to work. So you'd have to learn something new that way. Actually, might be my next video that I do. That might come out next week. Who knows? We'll see. I think those two just really go hand in hand because it's about discovery and learning something new. Every time I learn something new, it gets me so excited to continue creating after that. You know, it's like learning to ride a bike. You learn to ride a bike. Once you can ride a bike with no training wheels, you want to ride that damn bike all day long. You'll never come inside. Because you learned something new, and it's so freeing to have that new knowledge available to you. Discovery and learning is the key to fucking everything, really. Try setting up some limitations, try setting up some guidelines for yourself to follow. And by all means, if you start and you make your melody with those 3 sounds from that one plugin, and you start building it and you get up to a next section and you have to break that limitation, by all means, go for it. But the idea is getting the inspiration started. So if you've got it and then you're like, I need a synth to come in here, and the plugin you picked to make your melody with doesn't have a synth, obviously you got to break it for the sake of the song. You can't let your song sacrifice for the limitation, but the limitation is just to get your foot in the door. And that's all you need to spark the inspiration. That's what it's really all about, I think. And that's why I think discovery is the best way, because when you learn something new, it's something fires in your brain. I don't know the science behind it, but I know the feeling of it. So that's it. Hopefully I did good. Hopefully you watch this and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go make some music now. Hopefully it helped. Hopefully it helps me, you know, because like I said, I'm kind of stuck in a rut with music right now, and I'm trying to keep posting on this page every week, but if I run out of inspiration to make music, I guess more videos like this, and hopefully you guys like this type of video. It's a little bit different, but I think it's something that can help me get more creative with editing and stuff. I don't really know how this is going to be edited. The damn camera overheated. Just do a real quick. I don't know if it's going to overheat again. I honestly didn't turn it off for very long. Yeah, hopefully you liked this video. Hopefully it helped something. Maybe it gave you something to try to get your inspiration back of brewing, you know? I appreciate you for tuning in. Shit. I'll catch you next week. Peace.